Hello and welcome to the Change Gang podcast with me, your host, Laura Ordile. I'm here to help you hold on to your sanity and your soul as you move through big change. I'm here to guide you from frustration to flow in your life, bridging the practical and the woo, just for you. Let's go. Hey, welcome to the Week Change Gang. I hope everything's going wonderful, and I hope that you find today's conversation interesting and maybe a little bit weird and fun. I was talking with a friend recently and my husband, and we were just having a conversation about what's quote-unquote normal in family and the way that we grew up and how we grew up. What were some of the common things that we thought were normal in how we grew up, or was basically just part of our life. We never thought of it as difficult or that it was trauma or anything like that. Or if it was like, well, yeah, that happened and it wasn't great, but that's life, you move on. And I think that happens so often in life. I talk to people all the time, and this comes up in so many different ways. And sometimes it's a matter of how you ask the question. I started digging last week because when holidays come up, I often go and I Google and look at the history of them, what the history is. And of course, last week here was Valentine's Day, and I don't know if the whole world celebrates it, but we do. So I dug into it a little bit. It's all about love and romance and all these wonderful things that we put on it. And yet it has a few different origin stories. Some love, some death, and some out there in other ways that nobody really knows. It could have come from here, it could have come from there, it could have been anything. Sometimes I think that's a little bit about how I think about my history. A little bit of love, a little bit of death, a little bit of difficult, a little bit of fun, and some that's just weird. Probably a little bit of yours is out in that same realm. Because I don't know no one with a cookie cutter, unmessy history of their own. Maybe you do, but I actually have not come upon one. Because most of the time, even when people say they have a good life with a fairly common background, it still has some stuff going on. There's still stuff in there if you start asking them about, did this ever happen in your family? Or do you remember this happening? Or what about this in your life? All these different things. And then they go, oh yeah, I hadn't thought about that, because maybe it was Grandma or Cousin Bob that stabbed someone or ran off with a neighbor. Or, yeah, maybe there was that time when our family just had to, get up and move all of a sudden, but I never knew why. And these things show up in our life. They're the story of our life. And maybe you truly don't know any stories from your family, but from that long line of ancestors that are there with you all along the way, I bet there's something. And I bet if you looked closely even at your life, you could sit down and make a list of some of the quote-unquote weird, and I use quotes because some people would say weird, some people would say not so weird. It just all depends. In my story, in my life, and I thought about this for a moment, and just off the top of my head, there were things that was like, oh yeah, that is a little interesting, I guess, because my family, I have sisters that are from my mom's first husband, second wife, and a brother who was from that second wife's first marriage, though he was actually adopted, so no blood relation. And the sisters that I call sisters, pretty much no relation either. They're not. But I grew up with them. We spent holidays and birthdays and just regular time playing together. We only knew each other as sisters. And I don't know if that was something somebody decided for us or if that was something we decided for each other, but it's something that we held on to for each other. there's a lot more. There's so much more, obviously, that I could put in there that is weird and wild and unique. We had someone in our family who was a rodeo clown, and they became a lawyer. Yes, we've definitely had drug addicts and a fair amount of alcoholics. And yes, there was an actual stabbing of someone, though the person stabbed themselves. I'm not sure if that was to commit suicide or get attention or what that was. And we had a family member who had a cousin who disappeared, just flat out disappeared the night before her wedding. Car abandoned, door open, no sign of her ever found. Nothing. I have a lot of military in my family, a fair amount of military. And one of those very lifelong military men actually ended up cruising around as a carnival barker at the end of his life. And if I think about it, I think I thought for a moment about some of the other things that were there. So I thought about just within us, we have just the sisters, the closeness there. I think we have about 8 divorces. There's 2 or 3, maybe 4 suicide attempts that we know of. Lots of babies born outside of marriage. Pretty common these days, but for a while it wasn't. Deaths, drugs, overdoses, alcohol issues, ex-cons, and then, yes, doctors, lawyers, military, police, a judge, all of this. We had this whole spectrum of people, and some of those doctors, lawyers, military, police, and the judge had some of those other issues that I talked about. So I'm curious, are you aghast yet? Are you thinking, oh my God, what kind of family does she come from? I come from a quote, unquote, normal family, because it's just my life. It's how I grew up. It's who was a part of it. It just was, and it just is, and it will be, because there's still weird stuff happening in the family, and some of it is weird to watch because it's circular. You watch one person do something, and all of the other people are aghast at it, even in the family, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is happening, what's up? And then, years later, you see the exact same thing happen with someone else. And all the people are saying the same thing. It's just another person now. But it's just crazy to see all the things that happen in a family. Not anything that I would have ever considered. And yes, there was a lot of different kinds of abuse in some of those different situations too. Emotional, physical, sexual, all the different kinds of abuse in different parts of the family and the situation. That's not even taking into account, like, my husband. That's just my family. That's just my family. My side of the family is there. If I went in to start talking about, like, my husband's side of the family, again, I could make another whole list of all the wild things that you could even imagine that happened. I'm curious, if you start thinking about your life, your family, and made a list of all the wild things, good and bad, would you be surprised at what shows up, do you think? Or would you just be like, oh yeah. Oh, because I was kind of surprised as I sat down, I started writing it out to be like, oh yeah, that happened, and oh my goodness, yes, there was this, and it just kept leading to the next thing and the next thing, because another person would pop in, and what their life was like, and all of those things. So I encourage you, sit down and take a look at your family, or have someone ask you questions about your life growing up, and see what kind of things are jogged, what's there. Because you might be as surprised as I was. And like I said, I didn't dig very deep. If I sat down and dug deeper in some of the things, it would be pretty crazy. And as you start to look and wonder, I want you to become aware that those things are what people call trauma. It's trauma. All of these things, from probably the time before you even remember, can be trauma. Because sometimes when something strange or weird or interesting is happening in your family, depending on how the people around you that you trust and love are dealing with it, that's going to decide for you how you deal going forward. And as well-intentioned as some people are, they're going to mess up. I'm a parent. I messed up. I know that I've created trauma for my kids. I love my kids. I'm sorry to my kids that I did that. Some of it I didn't know any better. Most of us, we don't know any better. And yes, you can move on and you can do well and you can do all these things, but more than likely you're going to have some difficulty, some anchor that has gotten inside of you that will probably bring something about some point in your life. Whether you're feeling stuck and you can't move forward, or all of a sudden you're having a lot of anxiety, or maybe you've always had anxiety, or anger issues, or you can't accept responsibility maybe for the things in your life that go wrong. It's always somebody else's fault. There are a lot of things that can come from all of these little things that happen in life. But they can affect you, and they likely will affect you. And sometimes that comes out in a physical manner too. That comes out in headaches, in exhaustion, in physical things like with digestion. Maybe your digestive system doesn't work very well. That could be something that's happened in your life, in your situation. Maybe it didn't even happen to you. Maybe it happened to a parent or a sibling. But because of the difficulty or the surrounding emotions of the people, it affected you. Maybe, just like me, just like pretty much everyone out there, even though you think you had what was just a life growing up, good, bad, and different, and maybe you think that you have dealt with all of these things, or that it certainly isn't affecting the thing that you're going through right now, whether it's difficulty in your career or your relationship, holding you back, something stopping you, causing issues, not able to hold on to money, or always having money issues. All of these things can be related back often to something that's happened in your life, as wild as that might sound. So it might be time to think about that, to see if there are some things going on in your life that you need to say, hey, that might have been a little bit difficult, a little bit of a trauma, a little bit of something that marked me, that put a little hook in my body, in my mind, about moving forward, about going into life. And now that hook is causing difficulty and causing pain. Maybe you'd like to get that removed. That's why I do the work I do, so that I can go in and help unhook those things, clear the marks away, help you heal in a way that doesn't leave anything in there to disrupt you going forward, to stop you in the ways that you're being stopped now from living the life that you want to live, from experiencing all the good things that you deserve and are absolutely entitled to in this lifetime. And it can be cleared. You are not too broken ever to be healed, and you do not have to learn to live with whatever is holding you back, ever. So there you go. You know a little bit of my crazy world, a little bit. I didn't share everything, but that's okay. And I didn't name names or talk about any of the particular people that all of those things happen to be a part of. I did want to share because I wanted you to understand and have a little bit of an idea of what I'm talking about. Because some of those things, in just the circle, I wasn't even going outside of into the extended circle of family. That was just siblings, my circle of siblings that I talked about with some of the things that I listed. So think about that. Think about your life, the life you're living, the things you want changed, where you're stuck. Do you think anything in your life could maybe, possibly, be causing one of those hooks to be hurting you? right now. I hope you have a great one. I hope you got a kick out of at least some of those. And I hope that maybe it helped you understand you and your life and maybe some of the things that are happening in your life and why. And that, yes, they can be cleared and helped. That's my hope. And I also hope that you have a great one and that you meet me same time next week right here. Ciao. I hope today's episode was interesting to you in some way and fun. If so, hey, find someone to share it with. Maybe they need to hear it too, or maybe they'll just enjoy it. If you'd like, go ahead and grab my tips on supercharging your success. It includes a free short meditation to do just that. You can find that at bit.ly/supercharge your success. Until next time, happy day.